Hi, welcome to Womb Magic. I'm your host, Ariel Myers, and I have a very special guest today. Marin Bach-Antonson is a Magdalene Rose priestess, an awakening mystic, and a devotee on the path of the divine feminine. In her work, she holds sacred space for women to connect with their wombs, tune into the power of the goddess, turn on their priestess codes, and connect with their 5D feminine archetypes to unveil their mission. So even in that, I have questions to ask. But as always, I want to start with just a little grounding and a centering so that we can connect from our bodies and our wombs and our hearts to each other. And so the listener can feel like you can really just center in and ground into your body, really trusting that you will receive whatever medicine is meant for you today. So if you want to and feel comfortable, you can gently close your eyes. Just let yourself settle into your body, bringing awareness to your heart beating. Slowing your breath, maybe inhaling to the count of 4. Exhaling to the count of 4. You can bring one hand to your heart and the other to your womb. And almost imagine that you can see a spiraling, almost envisioning a spiraling between your womb and your heart. Just doing a gentle scan of your body, seeing what's alive for you, what's calling your awareness. And see if you can let yourself be fully here today in your body, understanding that this work isn't about grasping something intellectually, but really letting it land and be received by your body, by your heart, by your womb. And really feeling held and supported by the earth, by the mama, as we connect into our bodies and connect to each other. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Thank you. So I wanted to first kind of share with the listeners how I know Marin. And I feel like Marin holds a special place in my heart. I don't know if you know this, but Marin's kind of the first woman who introduced me to this idea even of sacred feminine and sacred connection to the feminine. I didn't even know that was a thing that I should be seeking before I met her. And I feel like it was kind of serendipitous the way we met. I don't know if you remember, but I had my apothecary. We were both on the East Coast at the time. We are both no longer on the East Coast. And a customer, I guess, rented my space on a Sunday, I think, when I was typically closed for a blessing way ceremony, which I, at the time, just thought was like a baby shower. I didn't know what it was. And Marin was the doula, or the woman that was holding the space. And I didn't want to like listen in so much or eavesdrop, but it was a small space. So I just could kind of hear what was happening. And it was so profoundly beautiful. It was the first time I had experienced and witnessed a circle of women gathering. And I feel like I didn't even like consciously understand at the time what it was awakening me, but I was like, amazed that even something like that could happen. And like, who are these women who are in this group that they can do this and like witness this woman? And then so when I think I was pregnant at the time, and I asked you, Marin, if you could be my doula and hold my blessing way. And even though you couldn't be at my birth, we did hold a blessing way. And it was, to this day, one of the most beautiful and profound. I think I sobbed the whole time. And it wasn't even so much what the women were saying, but just something about being witnessed by women that was like, ah, like it just awakened me to possibility. And I remember you gave me a little goddess symbol. I don't know if you remember that, but just a couple months ago, look what I got. Can you see that? so yeah, so it feels like full circle a little bit. That was 10 years ago, because Jonah is 10. And you have a Jonah too, right?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, that has just opened, stretched, and expanded my heart in this moment. Thank you, my sister. Such an honor, such an honor. And honoring you and all that has unfolded, the beautiful petals of the rose that have just unfolded within you, and all the space that you're now holding. Just exquisite how this path just opens and opens and opens.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I've also been, I mean, I have so many questions, and I don't know if I should begin in your introduction, which there were some questions, but I actually feel like I almost feel called to ask, like I'm on your Instagram and your Facebook, and I feel like you have just like really taken what maybe 10 years ago was like an inkling of an idea and it just feels like you too have just like burst open. So I'm curious about what happened for you and how that happened and how it evolved and
Yeah.
just how you got to where you are now.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you actually the germination of it all, because it connects so beautifully into the story that you've just told. And this is how it is, just how this happens, I suppose, the magic of women activating each other. When I was 25 years old, I happened to sign up for an autumn equinox ceremony. And I had no idea even what that really was, except that I knew that it had something to do with the fall. And I absolutely loved fall on the East Coast. So I thought, oh, I'll go to that. I love fall. And I happened to get there late. And when I hit the door frame of the ceremony, it had already been in process a bit. And the woman that was leading it, the priestess, she had had a beautiful frame drum, and she was keeping this beat. And there was an altar, and there were all these women that were just adorned as goddesses. The minute that my eyes and my body hit that energy, something in my body, I had a visceral experience, and it was as if I remembered. I remembered this thing, this energy, this template that was ceremony and sisters and circle and ritual and rites of passage. And I know now that my priestess codes got activated on that day. I went right up to the woman that was leading it. I was like, confident 25-year-old. I just was so overcome with this energy that I had no fear in me whatsoever. And I went right up to her, and I looked her in the eyes, and I just said, I have to do what you do. And she kind of laughed, and she took a liking to me, and invited me to be her apprentice for the next 2 years in what was at that time a mystery school program. And I just talk about your life, your soul guiding you to the moments that you're supposed to be at in order for this path to awaken for you. That was one of those moments. So up to the present moment, I had been germinating those seeds of the vision of truly working as a priestess. What I understand now is that priestess is a fifth dimensional archetype. It is my higher self version of me, that once I was able to break through some of the confines and the rules of the mainstream matrix of the third dimension, of what you're allowed to do, what you can actually make money doing, believing who's going to come, etc. I knew once I broke through that, everything started to unfold. And I'll share a really important piece because at first I was like a person at a gate with a battering ram, trying to break through it, trying to figure out this mission that I knew was encoded inside of me. And so many women do this. We have the impulse, we have the fire, we have the light come online in us. We know we're meant to serve, and we approach it from the conditioned place of the masculine, trying to intellectualize, figure it out. We take business courses, we do coaching, we do all sorts of things to try to put the pieces all together so that we can create this platform in order to serve. And when I finally surrendered to it, is exactly the moment that it unfolded. Because what Divine Mother showed me was that the feminine is an essence that seeks to be revealed. And much like our womb and much like our yoni, those parts of our body, if they are to open, they need patience, they need tenderness, they need reverence, they need the right environment in order to truly open. And that is the essence of the feminine. So if we want to do this work, as I came to understand, I began to create that environment. And sure enough, that's what allowed it all to be incredibly abundant, incredibly impactful, and incredibly, much more in the public eye than it was a couple of years ago.
Mm. I got chills like head to toe when you started talking about the drum and just remembering, because I feel like that was a taste of what happened for me at your, it was like, oh, this is what we do. And especially since women, so many women were like not kind of brought up to support each other, to be in that is like, oh yeah, this feels much better. So
Exactly.
you mentioned it a little bit, and I'm just curious because I honestly didn't know what it meant, and I feel like I got it a little bit when you spoke to it, the 5D versus the 3D matrix. So, but I'm curious if you could just like explain that a little bit more, because I want to make sure that I get it.
Sure. So, in my knowing, having had the experience of it, we are multidimensional beings. We are not just a soul focused in a human body. We're actually a soul focused in 12 dimensions. And when you begin to accept, believe, and work with your multidimensionality through the process of tuning into those higher dimensions, you can touch and tune into those different dimensional selves. Now, one of the things that's happening here on Earth is that we are actually beginning to bring our fifth dimensional awareness, which is basically just an elevation of consciousness. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine that it's a hot day in New York City and it's sweating and it's sticky. I'm sure you remember that. And you just got out of a subway car and you're going to your friend's apartment and she lives on the first floor. Well, you're going to walk in on the first floor and you're going to be wet and you're going to sit down and it's just not going to be comfortable, right? However, if you were to take the elevator and it's air conditioned and you go up to your friend's apartment on the 12th floor, and she's got a deck that overlooks the East River and she's got plants on her deck and it's lovely with the twinkling lights and she gives you a cool glass of lemonade, etc. The address is exactly the same, but the perspective of your experience is completely different. That's what it means to be multidimensional. You can be in the exact same address on the exact same earth in the human body, but you would have an elevation. You would see reality completely differently when you elevate your consciousness. So there are women that can feel a fifth dimensional archetype within them. They know that they're here to do something significant. They can feel it and they don't understand it. And the reason they don't understand it is because it doesn't yet exist on the third dimension.
Mm.
It exists in the elevation of your consciousness. You are a womb alchemist. You are a sound ceremonialist. You are a feminine mystic. You are a high priestess of the rose. This is not things you can go to school for. It's not even really things, except for recently, that you can get trained in. It's something that you connect with inside of yourself. It's an energetic archetypal template that you pull into yourself, you activate it. And once it's online in you, like when my priestess codes turned on, I understood almost overnight. It happened very quickly for me, and it doesn't always happen this way for women. I understood how to do ritual. I understood how to put ceremony together. I spoke the language of circle, sisterhood, creating sacred space. I just knew how to do it because that fifth dimensional archetype merged and integrated so quickly for me. I was so open at 25. I was so ready. I was not in my way at all, that it all just poured through. So the archetypal template itself contains your gifts, contains your holy language, contains your wisdom that perhaps you've cultivated over lifetimes, and now you're pulling in now in order to embody that and be that and serve as that in the now.
Yes. It's like power. That's amazing. So now this is what you're doing with women. You're supporting women in helping them find this in themselves or turn that on or
Yeah, so I have
Mm,
different level mystery school programs.
mm,
And the very first level is about coming back into relationship with our womanhood. We've been taught to just be at war with our own womanhood, with our menstrual blood, with the process of our birth. You know, we weren't brought up to know that these things are holy and sacred and good. We have hardwired in our brains because of collective consciousness that they are hard and painful and bad and just something that we need help with and need to hide or whatever it might be, sterilize. Um, and so that's the first level. It's really tuning into the the awe of being female again, the
mm.
awe of connecting with the mother again when we've grown up with religions that completely have erased her. The second level of the mystery school work that I do is around um, activating these codes, activating these archetypal templates, and returning to the main template that so many women are being affected by right now, and that's the
Mm.
Magdalene flame, the Magdalene template, the template of the rose. It's all about living from the power and the potency of our hearts and learning how to keep the rose of our heart open when we're so conditioned to close it, close it, close it, protect it, armor it, judge other people in order to protect ourselves. And when a woman and her heart is like a stargate to the goddess, when a woman can keep the splendor of her heart open, she becomes a vessel, a conduit, and a catalyzer for bringing Divine Mother's medicine to humanity. And I've been shown it. There's nothing that is more potent than the power of love. And I don't mean love like a platitude. I mean love like the force that is the Divine Mother in all of her unconditional allowing, acceptance, adoration. When we are held at that level and seen exactly as we are, it changes us. And that's the power of a woman's circle. That's the power of being together. But when we can begin to transmit Mother's love at that level to the closed hearts of humanity, the world is gonna flip. All the reversal codes are going to reverse, and we're going to come back into the harmonic template that was always meant to be the paradise that is heaven on earth here. This is the Garden of Eden. We are in it. This Mother Earth, she is. So we are returning to that.
Yeah. I think it was actually on your recommendation that you the Mary Magdalene revealed by Megan Watterson. And so I was raised Jewish, but not religious at all. So I didn't really have any of the like negative associations with Mary Magdalene. I knew that she was kind of like taught to be the horror, or I but were you raised Catholic? Like did you have the all of the negative Mary Magdalene
I
association?
was. I was. I never quite bought into it. Was funny. I just never bought into Mary Magdalene as a bad woman. I kind of knew the story and the narrative, but I didn't get energetically hooked into that energy. I know that some women have to clear that from
Yeah.
the light body. But yes, I was raised Catholic.
Mm. Yeah, that book kind of blew my mind. And I feel like I want to read it again because it's been kind of calling to me again. Um, but yeah, that sounds really amazing. And part of me is like, maybe I can come to your mystery school. Are you in Sonoma or up in the Northern California, right?
I'm in Northern California now, originally from New York, spent 40 something years in New York, and then about 7 years ago moved to Sonoma County. Yeah, up in wine country. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So before that, you were 25 and you went to that event. Did you feel like you knew you had any sense of even longing for a more feminine connection, or did you like understand the patriarchy from that level of not wanting to be a part of it?
I have one specific memory that I can speak to of that. And I remember walking in my grandmother's sort of patchwork backyard. She lived in Queens and it was literally just a square. And so I would walk on this square while all the adults were in the house. And I think what probably happened on this day was I'd gotten myself into something of a trance just walking. And I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I remember thinking, I wonder who my real mother is.
Huh.
I had no idea where that thought came from. I get chills when I tell this story. And the most softest, most gentlest breeze came through the backyard. And there was something in me. I knew that that was my mother. It seems so odd for a 9-year-old to understand that at the time, but I knew, oh, that's my mother. That's mother. That's the other thing that happened around that time was my parents, who were raised Catholic, would kind of do the dutiful Catholic thing. They weren't inspired by religion at all, but I think they were raised with this idea that if you don't go, you're going to go to hell. And so we would go to church every Sunday, and it was chaos trying to get 6 kids. I'm the oldest of 6 kids out of the house into the 10 o'clock mass. And so my mother would just lose her mind every Sunday trying to get us all dressed and whatever. And it was never a good feeling. So I remember asking her at one point, why do we go? And she said, because that's where you find God, in church.
Hmm.
And I said to her, no, you don't. You can find God outside of church. And she, no, you can't. No, you go to church to find God. And I remember thinking, again, I was about 9 or 10 years old. Oh, I know something that she doesn't know.
Wow.
I know something that, yeah, that she doesn't know. And I don't know how I knew it. It was just in
Mm.
my heart. It was that soul connection, it was that memory, whatever it was. Um, but I was absolutely not at all on a divine feminine path. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a dancer. I thought I wanted to be famous. You know how that is when you're young. And then, to be perfectly vulnerable and honest with you, we had a very unexpected trauma in my family in that my brother committed suicide. And that was around the time I was 24. And my heart broke open because I loved my brother. And there was absolutely no sign whatsoever that this was even a possibility with him. It was so shocking. What I know now is that Divine Mother can come to us when our hearts are broken and
Mm.
when we are in a receptive place. I get chills when I say that. And I look back on that trauma, on that tragedy, and with all sincerity, I can tell you that it was the best thing that ever occurred in my life because my heart had been broken open. She was able to connect and find me. So I often say to people, your dark nights of the soul, your tragedies, sometimes they're the answers to our prayers that we don't even know that our soul is praying.
Mm, that's so beautiful. I feel like I got chills when you said that.
Mm.
Mm, yeah. I think that is one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast is because I'm noticing that, in my fertility work, um, of course there's like a physical disconnection from our body. Like we were saying, like you were saying, so many of the things that make us a woman, like our menstruation, like having our first period, it's almost like the rite of passage that what would have been or should have been was just removed, and it just kind of became something that at best was just annoying, and at worst was maybe something that we felt deeply shameful about or dirty. um, and so I feel like in my work I've been really able to give people almost like the things to do, do the tea and do the womb massage and like the physical actions of connecting with your body. And I try to lead like meditations and stuff, but I feel like there's like a world of like just divine feminine energy that I feel like I want women to understand that there's so much more there. And often like the way we access it for a lot of women who are trying to get pregnant is like through fertility, but it's like this, then almost like you're walking through a hallway and then you open and it's this like whole like garden that's lush. And I think one of the things that I feel is so missing, and just even as you're speaking I can feel it in you, is like this sense of like pleasure and like enjoyment of the body, that I feel like I'm still kind of not entirely sure how to bring that to women. It's like your body is to feel juicy in and pleasure in and enjoyment and even like sexual pleasure or dancing or movement. So I feel like I recall your circles having a lot of that, just like embodied pleasure.
Yes, dance, singing,
Mm-hmm.
drumming, connecting to the beat of the drum, touch. Sometimes we will create like an Aphrodite temple and we'll just rub rose petals on one another, just
I
for
love it.
that kind of thing. And it's really about reconnecting to the vibration of reverence to our woman body as a body temple, as a vessel of the divine feminine. And, part of what we have to become so conscious and aware of is that the program, the hologram of our bodies being for others runs in us. And whether it be just the constant conditioning of the magazines and what we see on mainstream media, that's definitely in there. But then it's also just the biological memory, the imprints written upon our DNA that we had to be a certain way and we were chosen by men at one point. We had no sovereignty over our destinies, we had no sovereignty over our lives. We were chosen for what we could give, for what we could offer. Sometimes that had something to do with our physicality. And so to be so tender and gentle with the voices inside of us that still perpetuate the need to want to be seen, to want to be beautiful, to want to look like the ones in the magazine, it's still, that program is strong still in the collective consciousness. So that's the first thing, to open our heart to that wounding and to be ever so present and gentle and develop a real witness consciousness with how you are still hooked into those programs. And then the second thing is understanding that our body, particularly our feminine parts, they hold a consciousness. Our womb I'll tell you a story, actually, being a womb wisdom keeper. Back when I was a doula, I used to love to attend conferences, birth conferences, and there was this one that was a sacred birth conference, and I was all over it. And the keynote speaker was this amazing African woman. She was she was an African womb shaman, and she was up on stage speaking in her wonderful lyrical African accent, and she said something that I will never forget. She said, "The problem with the Western woman's womb, your wombs are cold.
Mm.
The womb is meant to be warm."
Mhm.
And it struck me in the audience like a lightning bolt. Now, she went on to talk about birth, but I, I went on a quest. How do we make the womb warm? And what the womb revealed to me was part of why she's energetically cold is because we have a divorcing of a relationship. We have no relationship with our womb.
Mm-mm.
And so when we come back into relationship, and I do a lot in the Mystery School Temple around reconnecting with your womb in ceremony, calling your womb home to her rightful place as a sanctuary within your body, doing practices to warm the womb with different colors of light, to use sacred geometric patterns in the womb, to reawaken the womb consciousness so that it can feel safe, like the rose, to bloom and reveal itself. I have heard from women that their bleeding becomes much more rich and red after this, that their cramping lightens up because the womb is responding to the love.
Mm.
Everything in life, including our organs, everything in life seeks to be loved.
Mm.
The masterpiece that is our life, that the artwork of our life, it seeks to be loved. Our bodies seek to be loved. Our organs seek to be loved. Our food seeks to be loved. Our earth seeks to be loved. Goddess herself seeks to be loved because love is the force of life that expands life.
Mm.
So to expand the intelligence and the functionality of the womb, it seems so simple, but love your womb. Fall in love with your womanhood. Fall in love with your body as a body temple, etc. And it will make a difference.
Yeah. Warm womb. It's interesting because so many of the things we like learn in school and learn in, acupuncture school about the womb was like very, even though it was a more Eastern philosophy, it was very medicalized and very Westernized. And it was all about warm food and warm, warmth and moxa. Um, but there was never any discussion about like the energetic of the womb, like how does it move, how it, until I had been doing fertility work for 15 years before it even occurred to me to like try to feel into the womb. It was like the uterus, a very medicalized organ, and it took me a long time of like plant medicine and sitting and really intentionally trying to be with the energy of the womb before I could even begin to feel like, oh, there's like magic in there, and so I do feel about like it's we have to like summon it in intentionally. It doesn't often for most women just like happen like a bolt of lightning. It's like we have to actively seek that connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, set in the environment of love helps it all to open. One
Mm-hmm.
last thing I'll say about the womb is that if you look at the womb actually looks like a chalice. The
Mm-hmm.
womb is the Holy Grail imprint. Magdalene's womb was the Holy Grail. So this chase for the Holy Grail, it is the woman's womb. And when we unlock and activate the codes of our womb, we unlock and activate the codes of the potentiality of our Sophia consciousness. And when I say Sophia, I mean that Shekinah, that feminine, that God, goddess, divine template that we are meant to ultimately behold, that we are human beings that just like Jesus, Yeshua, Magdalene have the potential to be the full radiance of the sun, the full radiance of the Christos Sophia energy, the Christ, etc. The
Mhm.
womb holds a lot of that mystery. So that's an
Mhm.
even other level about connecting to the womb, but just want to throw that in there.
Now that's where I want to go.
That's how potent our wombs are.
Yeah. So, I'm curious, I had this curiosity when you were talking because I feel like you create these groups of women and you're surrounded by women and you're very almost able to express all of that version of yourself that's like the 5D priestess. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but do you find that in like life, I'm asking because I sometimes have this feeling where I will go to drop the kids off at school and I'm like, I don't necessarily feel like there's space in this world to be like ah so I'm curious if you are able to be this in like going to the grocery store.
Yeah. At this point, yes. At this point, I have embodied and integrated my inner priestess. The day that I knew that I was integrated was the day that I was at a wedding and somebody asked in the circle of guests around the table, "What do you do?" And I stood and I took a breath and I said, "I'm a priestess."
Yeah.
And I wasn't worried about what my husband thought. I wasn't worried about what anybody thought. I held it. And because I held it with an anchoredness within my physical, energetic body, it rippled out in a way that people actually leaned in as opposed to leaned out. What is that? Tell us more. And I was so touched because my husband actually, as I fumbled a little bit about how to explain what I do, my husband, like the divine masculine to the divine feminine, said, "She is so amazing. She's changing the world." And
Mm.
he didn't need to explain whatever, but he held that and gave that to me. And I have helped to heal that because for a long time, the wound of not being seen, the wound of not belonging, the wound of not being understood, these are all karmic wounds that we all hold. There's nothing bad and wrong with them. We just need to tenderly look at them, love them, and therefore transmute them. But all women hold three wounds of the Magdalene, and I will share them here. They're worthy of understanding. The first wound is the witch wound, and that is the wound that I speak of, which is the wound of I will be killed, I will be tortured, something bad will happen if I'm in my authenticity, if they really see me, if they really know me. And so, what we tend to do is we tend to want to be connected to the homogeny of our safe tribe of women. And we track the field. How do I fit in here? What do I need to do to fit in with these women? Ultimately, we don't feel safe with women. We all have a sister wound also. But at least it's not you standing out away from the group. So healing that is a huge piece of really stepping into the divine feminine. Then there's what's called the bitch wound. So it's the witch wound, the bitch wound, and the slut wound. And I'll talk about these. The bitch wound is if a woman truly starts to take care of herself and speaks her needs, then she's sort of labeled as a diva, as a bitch, because our role is take care of everybody else, then we approve of you, then you're good. And to step out of that, to break out of that conditioning can be really scary. And how to do that with grace and how to hold our needs and know that we're worthy is part of this journey into our divine feminine. And then the final one is the slut wound, and that's about our sexual power. If a woman is fully in her sexual power, I'm sure you remember from middle school, high school, oh,
Yes.
she was labeled the slut, she was the whore, right? And
Mhm.
so we're not allowed to fully claim our sexual power for ourself. We're allowed to be sexy, but for the world, right?
Mhm.
In bed with our husbands. We're
Mhm.
allowed to be sexy to a certain degree that has parameters. But to claim our sexual nature is to claim our creatrix, is to claim that we are masters at knowing how to use life force energy and move mountains. I know that we're going to start doing that at some point. But like that's how powerful a woman is when she's connected to her sexuality. Um, so to heal and to take back your sexuality as something innately beautiful, powerful, potent is another level of claiming our divine feminine.
Mm.
So I've done a lot of work over the years in transmuting those wounds so that I can take my full self in her priestessness out to the grocery store and not sort of shrink around other people's energy that isn't quite a match yet.
Mm. That's beautiful. When you talk, it's like you're just on fire. The red behind you. So I have one more question that I'm curious about because I had, as you know, two boys, and it's definitely been, I'm aware that I'm raising boys that I want to be solid men, men connected to their inner feminine and to, and my husband and I have done a lot of work together around that. You met Dory. And so I've always said like, oh, if I had a daughter though, would I be, how would I be, how would I be, able to not pass on my wounding to her and to really raise her. And I can almost imagine like it being difficult, like you brought up middle school, like, oh, how do I watch a daughter go through middle school or high school, or with all of the shaming of girls and women, how to protect, a daughter from that. And part of me almost feels sad that I don't have that opportunity to do it because I had two boys. But I'm curious, like, was that very alive for you as your daughter? I know you have a daughter, but because she's older now, right?
She is. She's 18 now, and I have a
Mhm.
son who's 17. So it
Yeah.
was a very interesting experience to have a daughter and a son almost the same age, and to, watch them grow in tandem, but in these two different, very different experiences. What I will say is that I had all sorts of visions about being on the goddess path and the priestess path and having a daughter. And what you come to learn and understand is that every soul that comes in has their own path. And so much of the laws of the universe are we have to, what we put out, we have to experience as it coming back to us. So I'm very reverent to the fact that they have their own karma. They have their own things that they need to experience in this lifetime. And as a mother, you think that you're going to do your very best to have such a nurturing space that they're not going to go through any of that pain. And it was really revealed to me that that would actually be in disservice to them.
Mm.
But what I have learned to do is as they are moving through their own struggles and their own pain and their hurts and their suffering, the Divine Mother and the mastery of her within me, I know how to hold a space of just complete acceptance where I've learned not to give them advice
Mm.
because I realized that when I would give them advice, it's such a tendency that it comes from such a good place as parents, but I would watch them almost like a flower. They would close up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, I get it. Uh huh, uh huh, uh huh. But if I wouldn't give them advice and I would just hold the space and I would just say, I get it. They hurt you today.
Mm.
That must be hard. I know my heart would hurt if I went through that. You're sad. They would keep me with them. They would keep revealing their feelings. They would keep talking. They would keep open. And that's when I realized it's because they can feel my heart. I didn't go up in my head. I didn't start giving them thought. I didn't start giving them direction. I didn't start giving them wisdom or knowledge based on my experience. I just sat with them in my heart. And I know that I am giving them one of the most beautiful things, which is modeling how to keep your heart open during pain.
Mm.
Whether it's my boy or whether it's my beautiful girl, both of them, that's the best thing I think that I can give them.
That's such a good reminder, as my son is about to go to middle school next year. So thank you. I will remember that. Ah, thank you so much, Marin. This was really such a treat. I've so enjoyed speaking with you. You've had so much, what do we call it if we're not calling it wisdom, right? What are we calling this, like
Yeah,
body
I would say that, yes, wisdom. Yes, I would say wisdom
wisdom?
is the feminine. Yes, I sort of said it before, but
Feminine
yeah,
wisdom.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's such
I
an
will
honor.
if you let me know your mystery school websites and all of that, I'll share that with our listeners. And I so appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and share your magic with us. It's
Oh,
been a
it's been
pleasure.
such an honor to reconnect with you, my sister, and to wherever this goes and whomever catches it, I hope that it activates and expands, perhaps inspires, and that it just unfolds even wherever it's supposed to. So thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more like it, be sure to subscribe, and I hope you'll rate and review as well. To learn more about how to connect with and explore your fertility, visit wisdomofthewomb.online.com and learn more about my fertility enhancing 12-week program at fertilelikeamother.com. Thanks so much for joining.